With my husband Lester, we travelled to Namibia in southwest Africa in September 2014, encouraged by the recommendations of friends who, like us, like to travel and take photographs. So we hope you will enjoy this photo journey through parts of Namibia. After visiting the spectacular sand dune area in southern Namibia, we wanted to visit some of the sites further north up the coast. But you can't just drive directly over deep sand dunes, so we had to travel back inland and then further north over the spectacular Gorg and Quiseb passes. So here is the bottom of the Gorg Pass, and up into the top of the Gorg Pass, and then onto the equally spectacular Quiseb Plateau and Pass. These twisted and folded rocks, some of them expose the underlying sedimentary rocks as they pushed up and from the earth. Being very little vegetation, you get to see all the spectacular shapes. Right at the top of the pass, I just found this one little flower. It was in a little crevice, squeezed out between all these sharp edges. Near this point, we passed the Tropic of Capricorn, but there were so many tourists, we didn't wait to try and get an image in front of the one little sign. Carried on up the Quiseb Pass and down to the Quiseb River. Grand bridge, but unfortunately not much river, just a few stagnant pools. It only has any amount of water in it when it's the rainy season, and apparently it's only once in recent memory actually reached the sea. Carrying on over the top of the Quiseb Pass, we reached the main road between the town of Windhoek, the capital town of Windhoek, heading for the second largest town, Swakopmund, on the coast. As you can see, this road is really busily trafficked. And this one chap cycling up, he's come uphill in the heat of the day, in the tropics, close to Capricorn. He's having to carry all his tents and water. It must be exhausting. Madman. Virtually the only other vehicle we met on this route, despite it being a main road between two big cities, was this scraper. Namibia looks after its unsurfaced roads very well. They remove the ruts with these scrapers, which occur sometimes after occasional rains. And it really does make travelling on these unsurfaced roads very easy. Looking down from the plateau down to the coast, there's actually a bit of traffic for once. And you can see that there is a band of cloud. And this is caused by the Benguela current, a cold current rising up and meeting the tropical air, and is responsible for quite a number of shipwrecks in this area. The town of Swakopmund, the second largest town, has a certain amount of German origin and is apparently very popular with South Africans. Our rather nattily designed hotel, perhaps themed by shipping, which unfortunately doesn't founds and gets wrecked further up the coast. This one was obviously pretty brand new, and our rooms were in the top of the bows, and that large bay window is not the view from the living area, but actually the bathroom. So required a certain amount of careful movement at night, if you understand what I mean. The rooms were quite spacious and open plan. You can see the bay window in front of the bath, but it also did have a balcony onto the Atlantic Ocean. It was just rather cold because of that fog and mist, so we didn't use that very much. Now, Swakopmund had to develop an artificial harbour. It had been Germany's only port in Namibia because the British had taken over Walvis Bay about 10 miles south, which was the only real harbour, natural harbour. They used it as a coaling station and a whaling point. So at Swakopmund, everything had to be ferried off ships in barges. So they built this jetty. Looking along the beach, in the far, far distance, you might just be able to make out the end of the spectacular dunes area of the Naukluft Park. The Germans built a lighthouse, and this was their courthouse. Sadly, this building was scheduled for demolition and redevelopment. Seems such a shame. The Hohenzollern House is now an arts and crafts centre, and this is State House. This substantially built Lutheran church. They must have expected the population to grow in this area. And the once station, there's obviously no railway now, it's been refurbished into a rather grand hotel. And looking through the entrance, you can see that the railway line area is now a swimming pool. Now, if you turn right by 90 degrees from this point, a different site meets you, native housing. There's a lot of this sort of housing along the seafront. And compare that to this rather grandly refurbished apartment block of the more European part of the town. One of the Namibia's main industries is mineral extraction. And here in their museum is the world's largest quartz crystal. And here is a single quartz crystal, Lester standing beside it to give you an idea of scale. Here is a meteorite. It's probably about the size of 3 or 4 footballs. And this pretty green and pink is tourmaline. There were masses of different minerals in this museum. I didn't photograph them all, but I just have a section of them. You'll recognise an amethyst, a rather large one. And this amethyst has a quartz crystal star in the centre. This lovely golden rock is tourmaline. And these spectacularly shaped rocks are gypsum desert roses. You may recognise sulphur and copper. And this rather unusual green is bioptes. Anyway, moving up the coast, known as the Skeleton Coast. I think this was a bit of a joke by the chaps who wanted to try and sell you bits of rock. So the fogs from the moist air above the cold Benguela current coming up from the deep Atlantic interact with the hot air of the interior. And this has led to a rather lot of wrecks up what is known as the Skeleton Coast. This one is the wreck of the Zelia of Hangana, lost in 2008 on a tow from Angola to India. The birds seem to have made good use of it, and there's no trees about. Moving further up the coast, we headed for Cape Cross, and walking on the beach, we saw cormorants. That like to dry their wings, and small bushes that help to stabilise the sands, and a little flowering shrub. And the beach was full of shells of all shapes and sizes and colours. And these rounded boulders, eroded rocks from the mountains inland. And lichen indicates that the air is very clean. And just walking on the beach, there was all sorts of colours of pinks and purples and yellows. Our aim in travelling up this area of the coast was to come to Cape Cross, which was where the Portuguese first landed and claimed this land. This inscription reads, "In the year 6685 after the creation of the world, and 1485 after the birth of Christ, the brilliant, far-sighted King John II of Portugal ordered Diego Chao, knight of his court, to discover this land and to erect this Padreo here." So here is the Padreo, and Leicester is standing by the correctly placed replica Portuguese cross. There's a replica German cross behind. They apparently didn't quite locate their cross in the exact place. The original Portuguese cross is now in the Berlin National Maritime Museum. Sculptures in this area were made of collections of whale bones, and whale bones have different textures as they weather. And what we wanted to see particularly here was the Cape Cross seal colony. Now, fortunately, you can't smell this. You're warned well in advance that this may be a little bit smelly in this area. In fact, it wasn't as bad as I was expecting, I think because there was a breeze which helped to freshen the air. And you can walk through this colony on these boardwalks so you don't disturb the animals. There were masses and masses of them, all close together, mostly female seals at this time of year, with their yearling pups, and most of them are pregnant with the next year's pups. They come here because there's ample fish stocks from the nutrient-rich sea. There's really not a lot of space between all of them. A few males are starting to come ashore and try to sort of throw their weight about a little bit of sparring here and there, but the big males don't seem to have arrived yet. Even so, they'll sort of waddle over the top of all of them and cause a bit of a kerfuffle. But the females just want to stretch and sing and sleep and rub each other. This one's a yearling having a sneaky feed while mum's asleep. A lot of scratching with flippers goes on. And they like to show their teeth. Sadly, this is obviously a premature birth. These big seagulls will clear up. Another scratch. This one wanted to have his portrait taken, or her portrait taken. And it's been a long day. And this was a youngster asleep against mum's tongue. That evening there was a fly past of birds, and 3 fishing vessels anchored offshore just near our hotel. They fished all night, and as we breakfasted they cleared up and went back to port. We hope you've enjoyed seeing this little piece of Namibia, and will join me for further sections of very different areas in this fascinating country.